you look back on the mid to late 2000s, it's clear it was the era of the horror remake. Depending on who you ask, some say they look back on this with good memories, while others look back in disgust. Me personally, I look back with some pretty good memories. Not everything could be great, but not everything could be bad either. I think there were some really good ones. One thing's for sure, if you were a horror movie that had a fan base or even semi-popular fan base, your movie was gonna get remade. Friday the 13th would be absolutely no exception, as it would be the highest on the chopping block for this era. The big slashers would all have a fresh coat of paint. Upon 2009 Friday the 13th's release, a lukewarm reception would meet the film. And revisiting this film years later after a Friday the 13th we just had, I thought it's time to share my thoughts. So for this year's Friday the 13th, I decided to indulge myself in the 2009 remake. Every time there's a Friday the 13th, I'll pick a movie, and I'll see which one I want to hone in on. I believe last year was, or the last Friday the 13th we had was part 2. This year's 2009, it got me thinking of what I thought about this movie after 13 years, ironically. When I first saw this movie, I was kind of like everybody else, fairly lukewarm, and over the years, I would kind of stay the same, but go up a little bit, and I'd like to explain. So first, let's start with the positives, and I'll tell you about the things at this moment in time that I do like about the remake. Number one, as peripheral as it might be, is the poster. I think that the remake poster is awesome, and I believe it might be one of the only posters that you get to see a full body shot of Jason on the front. I thought that that poster gave a lot of foreboding and just gets you amped up. It almost makes you want to like the movie even a little bit more if you don't. It's a great poster. Number two, and the most obvious thing, the intro to this movie. The first 15-20 minutes, or about 15 minutes, is great. You get the recap with Mrs. Voorhees, you see baby Jason hiding in the woods, the head gets chopped off, and then you see this great cast coming into the woods. Everybody's got this identifiable personality. It just seems like their charge was a little bit higher than the rest of the cast in the movie, but we'll get there. I love the guy who's looking for the pot. He is the one I identified with when watching that intro scene, which is, I think, is a great take when you're doing a movie like this and you've got characters throughout and you've got this cast. If there's somebody the audience can identify with, and I think everybody can identify with one of those people. When I saw the guy looking for pot and he's like honed in on what he wants to do, I'm like, dude, that's me. When I have something I need to do, I just want to do it, get it done. That's how I am. And I love classic rock. So when he plays Sister Christian in his headphones looking for the pot, I was like, this is me in this movie. This is exactly who I am. I'm not a pot smoker, and it's not legal in Louisiana. If it was, I probably would smoke pot. But, you know, he had a task at hand, he was doing it, and he was rocking out. So that was great. And Sackhead Jason in this remake is amazing. So move on to the second thing I like about this movie quite a lot is, in fact, Derek Mears as Jason. I don't hear a whole lot of complaints about Derek. I think a lot of people kind of agree that he's a great Jason. He was my third favorite look and performer of Jason when we did the Ranking the Jasons on the You Need a Horror podcast, and I still feel really good about that. The remake Jason, as it were, Derek Mears' performance, I think, is the best of a couple worlds. This one is cunning, smart. He kind of has like a military stance in shots like CJ Graham from Part 6. He's also menacing and just fierce like Ted White. Part 3, Part 6, and Part 4 are what I feel is like a blend of this Jason. I can't tell you if I like Mongoloid human Jason better than zombie Jason. I think Mongoloid might be my preference. My Part 3 is my favorite look, and this guy right here is just a monster. Derek did a great job, and I applaud his performance, and I always will applaud his performance. I thought he was just awesome. So the Jason performance has to be at the top of my favorite things about this movie. One of the other things I really want to praise about the Friday the 13th remake that I don't hear talked about a whole lot is the score. I think that the score for this movie is great. That main theme where it's just ghostly and you hear these like kind of like ghost keys playing, the dun 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 dun, is awesome. I love the score. It's not Harry Manfredini, but it works for this movie. I will agree that Harry Manfredini is the sound of Friday the 13th, but I thought that the score that we got here was just really, really good. Give it a listen. Just pull it up on Spotify or iTunes if you haven't, and just check it out. I think it works really well. And the last thing I like is the majority of the kills. I think that most of the kills whether they're cool setups or not, are at least effective in its brutality with the performance of Derek once again. There are some great standouts, of course. There is the bear trap. There is the fire sleeping bag. I thought that the redneck guy that has the hockey mask in the middle of the movie got a pretty good kill. Most of them have good setups and good cinematography and just look cool at the end of the day. When it comes to the things I don't like, I could really just sum it up pretty simply. This movie, in a sense, to me, it's like having a really, really good appetizer and then having an okay meal. It's one of those things where the balance isn't always there. And I've heard people talk about swapping the characters in the movie or swapping the actors, and I don't think that's necessarily the problem, because I think that the bully, the blonde-haired guy, the mean guy, he was great as just the jerk. I thought he was the best of the bunch, hands down. If you don't want me to like you, you're doing a great job. I don't like you. One thing I forgot to mention too, really quick, real true Friday the 13th fashion, this one has nudity, a ton of it. Whether you're into it or not, it's got it. And I think that's awesome, because that is a much a part of Friday the 13th as anything else to me. So thumbs up to that. With the rest of the cast, I just feel like it's not a performer thing. I think they were working with what they had, the actors. Jared Padalecki, I'm a massive Supernatural fan. He would be one of the characters that I like, but I do feel like my opinion could be a little bit, colored because of my fandom for him. I'm a big fan of his. But at least he had some kind of, story going on where he's looking for his sister who's in the camp, and there's that old woman who kind of is like the storytelling gatekeeper, like if she's in there, she's gone. He just wants to be left alone kind of thing, which was interesting. I kind of like that. I just think that, everybody else just felt, I don't want to say bland, but I'm thinking of a less word of bland, because bland seems a little bit harsh, but I guess you could just say a little bit bland. But when I was watching this movie just a little while ago, I had a great time with it. I think it's probably, in my opinion, the best out of the big three with Michael, Freddy, and Jason in terms of remakes goes. It's certainly the one I like the most. I think it's the least offensive. I think it only carries Jason's legacy further without having any kind of, mudslinging or any kind of weird movie plot lines that make it just go, huh? I used to think that was the case when Jason held a prisoner in the movie, but then I thought to myself, maybe it's that I was just thinking Kane Hodder's Jason wouldn't do that, but the earlier Jasons probably would. And this movie is going back to kind of like that earlier human Jason. The only other thing I could say that I don't like is, I guess, is the very end. Clearly, it's very cliche where Jason jumps right out of the water and put the hockey mask back on. I would have liked to have just seen a couple bubbles hit the water right before the credits hit, and then that theme, that creepy Friday the 13th theme hit again. That would have been cool to me. Revisiting this film 13 years later from its initial release in 2009, despite seeing it many times in between, I'd say that my opinion is about the same. I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's great, but I certainly don't think it's bad. Between the big three, it's certainly my favorite. I think that the Friday the 13th remake is the least offensive in a lot of ways, and the most enjoyable, quite frankly. I think that Derek Mears does a great job, and without a great Jason performance, you've got no Friday the 13th movie at the end of the day, so kudos to him. I'd love to see him return to the role. So I ask you, what Friday the 13th film did you hone in on this year? Do you marathon, or do you try to take one random one and say, this is the one I'm going to hone in on this time, and try to just enjoy it for the holiday? Because I do consider it a holiday. So who knows, when the next Friday the 13th rolls around, maybe we'll do part 5 or part 7. But this time, it was the remake, and quite frankly, I'm glad I picked it. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, and music, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month.